cameras are on. Cameras, cameras, cameras. You guys can hear me, right? Everything's good? Visual, sound. Oh, okay. Can you hear me? Sound? Okay, good. Visual is good? Great. Awesome. Here. Denise, were you able to get into Quizlet? Denise, I don't see you, so I don't know if you're saying no or you're typing. Didn't try after. Okay, so I sent a link on the group chat. Make sure you try it there and see if it works. I didn't see any requests come through. I'm looking at it right now. There's no request for join. So give it a try and then let me know. All right, if anybody has questions, drop the questions now before we proceed. Make sure, guys, as much as you can, keep the cameras on you, cameras on, because it will record your attendance. So I just want to make sure that when we do, me or my assistant, when we do the attendance, that we count your hours. So as much as you can, keep it on. You need to complete 75 hours of this course. So preferably cameras on, okay? All right, so I got a question. SB, so that's Shanice, I assume. SB. So there's no class on Election Day and Veterans Day, correct? Well, one of these I can excuse you. Now both, I don't know. You should have voted already. What do you mean Election Day? I'll adjust the schedule accordingly if needed. Okay. All right. Okay, everything is good. We are online. Perfect. All right, guys. So, any other questions besides can we skip class? Like Janice asked. Any other question besides that? Let me know. It's funny. These people always trying to figure out when to skip class. Day 2 of class and you're trying to skip it already. I know. See how it is. Terrible. All right, so if there's no questions, I'm going to start with good news, right? And bad news. Which one do you prefer? Good or bad? Let me know in the chat. Do you prefer good news or bad news? Bad news and then good news. Okay. So, both? Okay. So, the bad news, getting from YouTube as well. Good news first. Okay. So, the bad news is today there's potentially only one chapter. Because this is a very long chapter. I mean, it's only a couple, the average page size as the other chapters, but there's a lot of things to cover here, right? So only one chapter might take a little longer and then not give enough time to go into a second chapter. So the reason why I'm saying this is we're going to be talking about transferring recording title. You know what? It's just like yesterday, the chapter 5. Chapter 5 was a little confusing. I just want to make sure that I don't confuse you too much on the first week. If there's enough time, so depending on how the class goes, there's enough time, that's the good news. If there's enough time, then I'll jump into chapter 7. And I always do this in every class. There are certain chapters that I prefer you guys are going to see later on, it's going to be 1 chapter a day for like almost a week. And in chapter 17, for instance, we're going to break it into 2 days, 4 parts. It's 1 chapter, but again, it's going to be talking about financing, and I want to make sure you guys understand to the core because it's heavily tested, right? So there are certain chapters, again, that's the the bad news. There are certain chapters that is just 1 chapter a day. The good news is that depending on how the class flows, depending on your questions, I will bring chapter 7 into today's classes. So we'll see how it rolls, okay? Shanice, see, Shanice, you're the only one commenting on this. All right, I don't know if you guys are seeing this. Right? First of all, first person to ask, are we skipping class? Right there. Are we skipping class for Election Day and Veterans Day? That's the first person. And then what does she ask right after? What does she say right after? Oh, 1 chapter. We're crying about it. Right? Seriously. I don't know what to do with these students. All right, so again, certain chapters, I really want to make sure you guys understand that we take our time to it. As you guys will realize, and some of you already know from my method of teaching, I'm not a rush. We got to meet schedule, end of the class, and these days, whatever. I prefer that you guys really understand rather than just pushing. All right. So going back to this, we're going to talk about transferring and recording title to real estate. So starting with title to real estate, there's legal and there's equitable title. Okay. So where there's legal title, that means there's a deed. Okay. Legal title means you own it. There's a deed that says your name is there. Equitable title, sorry, I will zoom out again. Equitable title means there's money involved or sweat equity, or you've put time, efforts, whatever it is. So that's the sweat equity part. So equitable means there's some type of money involved or claim involved. Okay, you're not the owner, but there's a claim, an equitable or money claim. Right? So again, legal title, you're legally the owner of the property. Equitable title, you have some type of money, right, or claim into the property. Right? And I'll explain that better in a second. Okay. So, as I was saying, legal title, you own the property. Equitable title, you have an interest which could lead you to obtain title. Here's an example. When a buyer enters into a contract for deeds to purchase a home, the seller lends the bulk of the purchase price to the buyer for a term of 3 years. The buyer takes possession of the property and makes payments on the loan. During this period, the seller retains legal title and the buyer owns equitable title. What is a contract for deeds? Contract for deeds is like, let's say you financed your car, right? And we'll go over this better. I'm going to repeat again, contract for deed later on. But let's say if you financed your car, okay? When you finance the car, who does the car belong to? You're driving it, but the title is still with either the company or it was sent to a financing company, right? One or the other. So the title is not with the driver. The title is with someone else. So that someone else is the legal owner of the car, while you making payments, you are the equitable owner of the car. Does that make sense? Right? You're making payments, you're putting money into it. You're the equitable owner. In this scenario, a contract for deed is the same thing but for a house. Let's say I sell the house to you, right? And again, we're going to talk about contracts for deeds more in detail later on. But I sell the house to you, but instead of you borrowing money from the bank, you give me, the seller, a down payment, and you pay me in installments over the years. You got it? So you pay me, the seller, over several years. Now, while you're paying me, I'm still the owner of the property. So I have legal title, but you're the one that lives in the property, maintains the property, pays taxes on the property, and is responsible for any damages to the property. So later on, you will own the property. Later on, I'll give you legal title to the property. But while the time goes by, you have equity, therefore equitable title. What is equity? Again, value into the property. Equitable title is a value or a claim into the property. Okay. Another common example is the mortgage loan transaction. The lender is the same scenario. The lender, right, if you go to a bank directly, the bank has equitable title. You become the owner right away, but the bank has the right to claim the property later on if you fail to pay the bank. All right? Questions so far? Good? Thumbs up? Okay. There's legal title. My name is on record. There's equitable title. I'm entitled to something. Okay? In any legal system that permits private ownership of real property, there will always be disputes as to who truly owns a particular parcel of real estate. For example, an owner might sell his property to 3 unrelated parties. The first party buys the property at the earliest date. The second party pays the highest price, and the third party receives the best deed, a warranty deed. So who owns legal title to the property? Okay, so ownership of legal title is a function of evidence. So if I have no evidence that I own it, right, how can I claim it? So I could have sold to you, but if there's no evidence, how can I claim it, right? So a court will generally rule for the person who has the preponderance of evidence of ownership is the owner of the property. So in the example that we just gave, if the first 2 buyers did not receive a deed while the third party did, then who has the legal ownership of the property? The third party, because they have the best evidence. Okay? However, it gets better. If the first buyer had moved into the house and occupied it for 6 months, as an example, before the original owner sold the property to the second and third buyers, right? And what if the second buyer, after searching title records, reports that the seller never really owned the property and therefore could not legally sell to anyone? Now, who owns the property? That's the question. So there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of potential fraud out there. There's people that sell the same item 3 times, 4 times, 10 times to different people, right? But how do we evidence that I'm the one entitled or that you're the one entitled to the property, right? So this illustration underscores the difficulty of proving title to real estate. There's no absolute or irrefutable proof that the party holds legal title. Now, our legal system has developed 2 forms of title evidence. There's actual notice and there's constructive notice, okay? So what actual notice says, and this is simple. By the way, notice is disclosure. It's like letting somebody know. Sometimes we don't have to go knock on your door and say, hey, just so you know, right? Sometimes we don't have to. The fact that information is available, right, is already notice. For instance, law. Can anybody here say, I did not know the law? Can anybody say that? Raise your hand if you can say you do not know the law. Nobody? You can't at all. Because the law is in the books, and the books are available. They're available on LexisNexis, and if you don't know where LexisNexis is, then you go to your state website. If you don't know where your state website is, then you go to Google. Google tells you. And if not, go to City Hall, go to county, go to the state in Trenton, and you have all the books of law available, right? So what we're trying to say is, and it's a very old saying in court, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So you telling somebody that you do not know is not an excuse. So that's why we have 2 types of notices. One is what we actually know, so that's called actual notice. That means you were told, and right now I told you, therefore you actually know, you have actual notice, right? And the other one is called constructive notice. Now the actual notice is easy. Actual notice is easy, is you actually know. This one is the one that sometimes people get a little confused. What is constructive notice? Remember I said the books of law are available, right? That means somebody filed in a particular library or several libraries, and therefore they're available. If you don't go to the library and research, that's your problem. But they are available. So constructive notice is pretty much saying information is available and you should have researched it. You guys understand? So actual notice is I actually know because I researched or I was told. Okay? So you have actual knowledge of something. That's actual notice. Okay? Constructive notice. Again, it's knowledge of a fact that a person, my hand does not want to cooperate. Knowledge of a fact that a person could or should have obtained. As another example, because we're talking about real estate. When you go buy a house, the house is there, right? Do you buy a house without looking at it? Well, maybe. But then can you claim that you did not know that there was damage to the house? Well, it's your job. You should have inspected the property. You guys understand? It's your job to step up and say, okay, I'm the one that's interested in this. Therefore, I need to take action and find out more about this. Right? It's available. Title is the same thing. Title is the same thing. You should have, like I said, visited the property the same way you should have pulled title or researched the title of the property before buying the property. So you should have known who the owner of record is. You should have known if there's any issues against the property in terms of title that need to be resolved prior to closing, right? You should have been aware of all this, right? For example, in New Jersey, the buyer and the lender are the ones that are responsible for this research. Some states, the seller is one of the parties responsible for pulling title. Some states, the buyer is fully responsible and some of them is half and half, right? But the idea is still the same. Constructive notice means that there's public records and therefore available to everyone, right? That's what constructive notice means. There's information available to everyone. There's no way you can say, I did not know. Okay? Any questions on this? No? Cool. All right, Lula has a question. Go ahead. It seems like they're both similar. What's the distinction? Well, the distinction is you actually know. So you've researched the records are available. Okay? So let me ask you. We are on page 2 of today. Okay? We're on page 2 of today. There's 15 or 16 more pages to go. Okay? Now, did you read the book before or this chapter before starting the class? You didn't. Was it available to you? The chapter was not available? You got the book, so it wasn't available? It is. All right, cool. So it's right in front of you. If you do not read, right? If you do not read, doesn't mean that the information is not there. But now that we're going over it, you had constructive notice, now you have actual notice. Okay, so until we got to this page, You did not know, like for instance, I'm going to talk about alienation, right? There was constructive notice because you have the book, it's available. Now we're going to talk about alienation. You're going to actually know what it means. So that's the difference between actual notice and constructive notice. One is available, the other one you got it. Simple. All right? So we're going to talk about hold on, I'm sorry. Sorry, had to sneeze for a second for some reason. Usually they say it's a sign of money, right? Somebody said that? If not, then that's what it means now. From now on, if anybody sneezes, especially in the next season, it's a sign of a lot of money. It's a sign of abundance coming at you. All right? That's it. So sneeze away. All right. Transferring title. How do we transfer title? First of all, give me a different word for transferring. You guys should know by now. I mentioned it like 3 or 4 times already. Another word for transfer or transferring. Let me know in the chat. Another word for transfer or transferring. Conveying. And yep, conveying. There you go. Convey or to transfer mean the same thing. I'm going to repeat this a million times. So, transferring title or conveying title. How do we transfer title? There's voluntary transfers, there's involuntary transfers. But the transfer of title is also called alienation. Let's talk about alienation for a little bit. Right? United States. Isn't the United States built by aliens? Right? I'm serious though. Let's focus on the word. Alien. What does that mean? Alien. Let me know in the chat. What does alien mean? Forget lean. What does the word alien by itself mean? If you were looking at it, alien. Let's take this out of here for a second. Alien. Foreign, unknown. Brandon says people from a foreign place. Okay? So alien is what, first of all of us are. Let's start with that because we're not native. So we were not, or some of you might be, I'm not sure. But because we're not native to this land, we are all somehow aliens. In fact, if not us, then our ancestors, they became legal aliens, right? They obtained a residency and then became US citizens later on. But alien means you're not from here, so you are foreign. Okay? You are not from here, so you are foreign. Right? Alienation right here, means transferring to somebody that's not from here. Now, what do I mean by here at this moment? Let's look right here. Sorry. Let's call this the deed. And deed usually is what says who owns the property, like I said. Right? Deed, who owns the property. If this deed says, for instance, Tina, right? So the deed says Tina, then who owns the property? Tina does, right? Now Tina wants to sell. And she wants to sell to, let's see, Francesca. Is Francesca part of the title? Is Francesca part of the deed? Until the sale happens, no. Until Tina is out of here, no. You understand? So far, Francesca's an outsider. So until the sale concludes, until the closing happens, and she becomes part of the deeds, until that happens, Francesca is an alien. Alien to what? Alien to the deed, not part of the deed. Therefore, an outsider and has no rights to the property yet. Are you guys with me so far? Give me a thumbs up if you're with me. Okay. So the term alienation is literally selling, gifting, or exchanging the property with an outsider. I can sell to Francesca, I can gift to Francesca, or I can exchange with Francesca. You understand so far? So that means that once Francesca actually buys, right? Once Francesca actually buys, she's now the citizen of this property, right? While Tina is seized of the property. So now she's an outsider of the property. Tina became the alien to the property. You guys got it? So the word alienation is selling, gifting, or exchanging with an outsider that becomes then the owner. So Francesca became the owner of the property. Now everybody else is foreign. Everybody else is an alien. So again, going here, transfer of title is also called alienation. Make sure you take good notes on that because we're going to talk about alienation several times, especially in chapter 17 under financing. Mortgage companies have the right to allow you to assume a loan or not, right? They have the right to declare the entire loan to be due today because you sold it, because of alienation, okay? So, when the transfer uses a written instrument, I know it's a lot of words to remember sometimes, right? But the word instrument right here, in this case, is a document. Okay? So every time you see instrument when it comes to real estate, we're talking about documents. And I'll explain why in a second. But every time that we use the transfer uses a written instrument, then the transfer is called a conveyance. Conveyance, transfer, conveyance, right? Now, why do we call it instrument? Here's the thing. We have musical instruments, right? What are musical instruments? Is what we use to play music. We have surgical instruments, right? Why do we call the instruments? Because it's what we use to perform surgery, right? We have written instruments, right? This is what we use to document transactions. That's why it's called instrument, is what's used to perform a particular action. So a written instrument in terms of title is a document. The title instrument could be a title document. The deed instrument could be a deed documented or recorded. Okay? So instrument means document. All right. There's different ways to transfer title. One of them is voluntary. What does voluntary mean? Means you want to do it. We covered this yesterday, right? So voluntary is something that I want to do. And then there's involuntary. They're taking the house from me, right? Voluntary, you want to. Involuntary, you don't want to lose the house. So voluntary ways to transfer or to alienate. Public grant, where we gifting the property or giving the property to the city. By deed, because a deed, we prepare it. The seller prepares it, right? And by will. That means we're gifting, right? Transferring to our heirs or whoever we designate, correct? So these are all voluntary. As far as involuntary, we have escheat. Escheat is the government taking the property away from you because you did not prepare a will and your descendants did not claim the property. Foreclosure. You did not pay the mortgage bill. You did not pay the tax bill. You did not pay the construction bill. So somebody took you to court and asked the judge to foreclose on you, right? So you lose the property by foreclosure. Eminent domain. We're going to go over all of these, by the way. But eminent domain. Eminent domain is when the city wants your property, right? We talked about this briefly yesterday. The city wants your property for public use. Like, I need to build a brand new school, and you know what? Your property is in the exact spot that I need to put this school. So here we go. We're going to condemn your property, take it from you, and build that school that serves the community. Okay? Now, adverse possession. Well, that's somebody, that's the abandonment claim. It's the easement by prescription, right? Or squatter's rights. Is where people take over your property because you abandoned the property. And then we have estoppel. Estoppel is when there's a transfer of the as it says, it stops. So there's a transfer of a debt, as an example. And it says, as of this moment, I no longer have a claim to this debt. You do now. But I'll go over this more in detail in a second. So these are the voluntary and involuntary ways. So again, let's start with voluntary. Voluntary is an unforced transfer. That means you wanted to transfer the property. It could be by public grant or it could be by private grant. Public, you're giving to the municipality, for instance, and private, you're selling from one party to another. A living owner that makes a private grant does so by deed of conveyance or simply deed, right? And a private grant that occurs after somebody dies, usually it's called transfer by will or laws of descent that each state has. We'll talk about that also later on. Involuntary, again, without your consent. Okay. And we're going to start with deeds of conveyance. What does conveyance mean? Let's go at it again. What does conveyance mean? I told you I was going to repeat it like a million times. Transfer. Very good. Transfer by written document. Perfect. Now, so deed of conveyance, or deeds that transfer ownership of the property. As you know, a deed is a legal instrument used by an owner to transfer title or real estate voluntarily to another party, the grantee. There has to be delivery. There has to be delivery and, very important, acceptance. Delivery and acceptance. So the execution of a valid deed in itself does not convey title. Okay, so let me put it this way. I have a piece of paper here. I'm going to call this deed. I prepared it, and I say I'm selling my property to Brandon, right? So I'm going to prepare the document. Brandon, don't say yes because I'm not selling anything to you yet, okay? He's like, yeah, sure. Give it to me. All right. So here's the thing. I prepare a deed, and I say I'm selling my house to Brandon, and I sign it. If I hold on to this document, is Brandon the owner? And the answer is no. There has to be an actual delivery to Brandon. Here you go. Take it, right? And then Brandon has to actually accept it, or implied acceptance, usually by a third party, like a title company and so on. Yeah, you want it, right? But that's what it is. There has to be delivery and acceptance. If there's no acceptance, if there's no delivery, then there's no deed. Meaning the document exists, but the transfer is not valid. Okay? So it is necessary for the deeds to be delivered and accepted by the buyer or the grantee, right? So very, very important that you guys remember this. Delivery and acceptance. Delivery and acceptance makes a title valid. Okay? Delivery and acceptance makes the title valid. Okay? Now, to be valid, delivery of the deed requires that the grantor. Quick question, who's the grantor? Because there's grantor, there's grantee. Who's the grantor? The owner. Me? Thank you. The owner, the seller. Yes, in my example, the seller. Absolutely. So the grantor must be competent at the time of delivery. What does that mean? In most states, means I need to be a legal adult. That means over 18 years of age. But I also have to be of sound mind. That means I have to be aware of what I'm doing. That it's voluntarily. It's not something that I'm being influenced, right? It's not something that I'm being forced to. I'm voluntarily transferred, right? And that I do intend to deliver the deed beyond the act of making physical delivery, okay? So again, Janice, that's why I don't have my water today. Notice that I don't have water. I haven't drank yet. So I cannot be drunk to do this. I have to be competent, fully aware. It's a joke. It's actual water, okay? That's why I said water, okay? Denise is always a bad influence, I tell you. All right. Validity of the grantee's acceptance requires only that the grantee have physical possession of the deed or record the deed. Let's notice one thing. On my end, to make it valid, on my end as a seller, to make it valid, I have to prepare it and I have to deliver it, right? On the buyer's end, you don't have to sign anything. What makes you the owner is by accepting it and being in physical possession, okay? So for you, that's it. For you, just have to have physical possession of it. Now, notice again that I said physical possession or records the deed. Now, why do we have or record the deed? Why not physical possession? Sorry. Why not physical possession and record the deed? Because recording the deed into public records is not mandatory. I don't have to. Nope. That's it. That's what I'm trying to say. Or, right? This one, yes, is important. I need to physically own it. It's in my hand. It's mine. I'm the owner. Do I have to record? No, I don't have to take this to county records or the registrar. I don't have to put this anywhere. I can hold on to it. You guys understand? So, or, and I'm saying this because, yes, there's going to be complications. I'm going to talk about that in a second. There's going to be complications, but it's not mandatory. And again, I'm saying or. not a requirement. The state exam, there might be a question, or school exam, there might be a question that says, which one of these makes a deed valid? One of the answers is recording a deed. Recording a deed is not what makes it valid. It is the acceptance and physical possession of the deed that makes it valid. You got it? The acceptance and physical possession of the deed makes it valid. The recording is an option. We can record if we want, not a requirement. This is a requirement. Okay? Now, and I will again address, Lula, what you just mentioned. It's going to come up right now. Okay? Now, once you accept it, once it's in your hand, Brandon, once you accept it, then the property is yours. And because the property is yours, I'm seized of the property. That means I no longer have possession of the property. I can no longer walk the property unless you, Brandon, allow me. You guys understand, guys? It's very important that you understand this. The moment, this is what happens. The moment this goes to Brandon, I no longer have possession of the property. That's it. I can't go in until Brandon says, hey, Bruno, you're such a nice seller. You and your family want to come over for dinner one of these days? And boom, there you go. Now it's the only time I can go into the property. I'm immediately excluded of the property the moment I transfer to Brandon. He's the one with the rights to the property. All right? You guys good? Okay, great. Because the deed has now fulfilled its legal purpose and it cannot be used again to transfer the property. Can I create another deed? Sure. Is it valid? No, because Brandon is in possession. Can I sell to 10 people? Yes. Is it legal? No, because Brandon is in possession. Got it? Deed transfer is what makes it valid. The grantor. Oh, by the way, let's say Brandon loses the deed. Oops, lost it. I did not record it. Don't know where it is, right? It's gone. Does it change Brandon's position in the property? No. He is still the owner of record, okay? The same way, I cannot reclaim the property on the grounds that he lost the document. Oh, you lost it? Okay, it's mine again. Cannot do that either, right? That's not how it works. Because there was a delivery, there was acceptance, I no longer have any right to the property, right? Nor, which barely ever happens, but somebody could be upset and say, well, Brandon comes to me and says, Bruno, please, just take the property back. Here's the deed back. It's not valid. The deed is no longer valid because the deed says from grantor, Bruno, to grantee, Brandon. So for you to transfer the property back to me, Brandon, you would have to create a new deed that says from grantor Brandon to grantee Bruno. So this deed no longer has effect for transfer. It was transferred and that's it. It's yours. Deal with it. I'm out. Simple as that. All right? Now, in states that use the torrent system, title passes only when the deed has been registered on the certificate of title and the transfer of the certificate has been issued to the new owner. So I like to compare the torrent system, and we'll talk about that better in a second, but I like to compare the torrent system to, I don't know if you guys ever saw something called the pink slip for cars. You ever saw a pink slip for cars? The title to cars, right? On one side, it says title. In fact, that's your name. It says you own a car. Here's the VIN number. Here's the model number. Here's the year. You own the car. On the other side, it says, if you're selling, please sign here, right? So it's the bill of sale. So in the torrent system, it's very similar. These two documents become the same. So it's the title, right? And the transfer, it's all recorded into one document. It's very similar. Okay? Certificate of title. Again, we're going to talk about different titles evidences of title in a little bit. All right, validity. What makes a deed valid? Depending on the state law, a deed must meet the following requirements for validity. The deed must be delivered and accepted, check. Have a competent grantor and legitimate grantee, checked, right? I already explained about being of legal age, living, and so on, right? It must be in writing, check. Contain a legal description. What is legal description? Of the property. Legal description of property. And we're going to talk also about these things, legal descriptions, later on. It must contain a granting clause. Now, what is a grant? I'm giving to you. I'm granting to you. I'm giving to you. So it must say that I, the grantor, am giving to the grantee, buyer, right, the property. So it must contain a granting clause that explicitly says that I transfer to you. Okay? So it must express the present desire and intention to transfer. And it must include consideration. Now, here's the thing. What does this word mean, consideration? Most people think, hey, I consider you to be a good person. Or I had you in mind, so I had consideration for you, right? But no. In exchanges of title or of property, consideration means money. Consideration means money or value. Consideration means money or value. And I saw what you wrote, Lula. I'll address it in a second. Consideration means money or value. So, if I'm selling something to you, or if I'm transferring or gifting something to you, there has to be some value in exchange. Nobody goes around and say, well, I just feel like giving you the property. Take it, right? There has to be a reason why, right? If it is a gift, then I have to stipulate exactly why it's a gift, okay? So the deed must be accompanied by valuable or good consideration. Right? Lula wrote love, so here we go, love and affection. Can I gift property to my kids? Sure. I'm bribing for their love and affection. That's what I'm doing. But I can give property to my kids, yes. Isn't that what happens in a will? When we're transferring the property in the will, isn't that because of love and affection? Right? But the amount need not reflect the actual price in most cases. Now, notice that it says most cases. We're going to talk about it later. In the state of New Jersey, it must be the actual price. We'll talk about it when we get to the state portion. Every state has different rules. That's why it says in most cases you don't have to put the price. Because certain states, New York, New Jersey, PA, they require the actual price to be on the deed. Okay? It must be signed by the grantor. And who's the grantor again? The seller. So it must be signed by the seller. Be acknowledged. Be acknowledged is not a requirement. Be acknowledged is not a requirement. But some states do require an acknowledgement to complete a valid conveyance. So, what is acknowledgement? Acknowledgement means we identified the seller and that their signature is genuine, like notarizing. That's an acknowledgement. Okay? State of New Jersey, for instance, and again, I like to address the state of New Jersey because it's immediate where I'm in, where most of you are as well in this particular case. So, state of New Jersey, has no requirement for notarizing, has no requirement for acknowledgement. But if you want to record it into public records, if you want to put it into public records, then it must be notarized, right? So that's what it says here. Most states require that it's notarized before or acknowledged before it's recorded. So when do you think is the right time to notarize or to acknowledge? When do you think is the right time to notarize or acknowledge? Let me know in the chat. Because only the grantor must sign. That's what I'm asking. The grantor is the seller. If later on you want to do something like put it into public records, right? When should you have this notarized? When should this be notarized? All right, so we got a couple options. When I said a couple options, we got two. That's a couple. I'm waiting for more. When should you acknowledge or notarize the deed? When do you believe you should? Because again, the seller is the only one that notarizes. The seller is the only one that signs the deed. So when should you have it notarized? Raise your hand if you own a home. Raise your hand if you own a home. Keep your hand up if you know where the previous owner is. Keep your hand up if you know who the previous owner is. All right, from 5 hands, we got 3. Okay, you can put your hand down. See, the majority of the times, especially nowadays, we don't even know who the seller is. We don't get to meet him anymore, right? Even when we go to closing, seller goes first, then we come in as buyers, and that's it. Sometimes we don't know who they are. Sometimes, like I said, even during the walkthrough, we never saw him. We never met him. So after closing, if you did not meet him before closing or at closing, what are the odds of you meeting these people after closing? Slim to none. So a seller might sell and then just disappear out of that area altogether. Disappear out of your life altogether, right? Majority of the people do not know who the seller is or where the seller is, right? So when is the right time to notarize? When is the right time to acknowledge? When it is signed, and yes, at closing, right? When the seller or the grantor is signing, they should notarize right away. Is it a requirement? No. But understanding, like Lula, you're asking before about later on, complications and all that stuff. Understanding future issues, when should you notarize? Right away, at closing. When they're signing, notarize. Simple as that, okay? Because again, recording is not necessary, but if you want to record, it should have been notarized already. That's pretty much what we're saying, okay? Again, recording, not necessary to make the deed valid. Not necessary. However, it is in the grantees, following up with Lula's message before, it is the grantee's best interest to do so. Because recording the deed gives public constructive notice of your ownership. Okay? So remember actual notice and constructive notice? Remember those two? Yes? Great. So constructive notice is the deed is recorded. Actual notice is me researching to find out, oh, Lula's the owner. You understand? So recording the deed protects you, the seller, in future disputes. It shows that you are who you say you are and that you have the right to be there because you have the deed and it's recorded. Okay? Not a requirement, but it's an extra step that will help you and protect you. Okay. Now, one of the requirements that has to be there is a conveyance clause or transfer clause, right? So he has to say that the seller grants, right, or allows you to take over the property, right? And this is the only required clause. The habendum clause describes the type of estate being conveyed. So if it's a fee simple, a life estate, whatever it might be, and it says for this person to have and to hold for as long as they live, life estate. This person to have and to hold as long as they don't change the terms of the property. For instance, a determinable, fee determinable, right? For this person to have and to hold for as long as they want. Fee simple, absolute. It's your property, right? So habendum clause is the one that gives the type, defines the type of transfer that you're getting. Fee simple, life estate, fee determinable, and so on. The redendum or reserving clause in the deed shows, hey, let's say, again, going back to Ed, I'm selling the property to you as long as you keep it as a hospital. So we already said it was a fee simple determinable, and now we say what the restriction is. You understand? So the deed itself, the document that transfers from me to you, has to stipulate what restrictions I'm imposing onto you. Okay? And tenendum clause, barely ever you're going to find it in the exam, but it just identifies additional property being conveyed in addition to the land. So it's added to the sale, personal property, for instance. Now, covenant or warrant clauses. Now, every deed must come with some type of warranty or guarantee. So if I'm selling something to you, I have to guarantee something, right? One of them is warrant of season. You guys remember when I said I gave the property, I gave the deed to Brandon, and then that's it? The moment Brandon took it, I no longer can get into the property unless he invites me? Yes. It assures, one, that I have the right to transfer, and two, when I do so, I'm seized of the property. Season means I was able to transfer to you. It is now yours. That's it. I'm no longer part of it. And that makes sense, doesn't it? Makes sense that I can, if I'm the one selling, I'm the one that owns the property. That makes sense, doesn't it? Can anybody sell something that's not theirs? Let me know in the chat real quick. I just want to. Joel's the first one to say yes. I do it all the time. I was trying to sell my wife yesterday when we asked this question. Anyway. Denise says no. Are you kidding me? You never saw somebody selling something that's not theirs? You never heard of those people that hey, this just fell off the truck, or you know what, we're going to deliver, but we have an overstock. It's yours now for like $10, something that it costs $100, right? Or let me ask you, Denise, here's a phone. If you find the phone somewhere, or if you take the phone from me, can you sell the phone? All right? So these are things I'm trying to say. People sometimes sell stuff that's not theirs, right? Scammed 10 people with the same property, absolutely. You could sell something that's not yours, right? So there's a lot of people that scam out there. Here, I'm telling you that I'm the owner and I have the right to sell. Okay? Is this always true? No, because I can claim whatever I want. Understand? I said I started this the other day. People lie not once, not twice, but all the time. It's very difficult for a liar to stop lying. It's very difficult for a thief to stop stealing. Very difficult for a cheater to stop cheating. Right? So, and I'm not talking about personal relationships. I'm talking about other things, lives, transactions, and all that stuff. Okay. So I'm cheating you if I tell you that I'm the owner and I'm not. I'm lying. I'm cheating, right? I'm stealing somebody else's property and selling it to you. So yes, this could happen all the time. So the first warrant or the first guarantee is that I have the rights to sell. The next warrant, covenant, or guarantee, they all mean the same. The next warrant, covenant, or guarantee is of quiet enjoyment. What I'm telling you here is I'm guaranteeing you or assuring you, the buyer, Denise, I'm guaranteeing you, the buyer, that you will not be disturbed by third-party title disputes. Okay? What would be third-party disputes? As an example, I sold to too many people. Right? Or, that's one of them. Or, as I said before, I am the owner, nobody else. So I'm the one that has the right to transfer. Okay? So clear title. Yes, Lula. Clear title. And in fact, further assurance. So I'm guaranteeing you even further that if the title fails, I'll help you. I'll help you clear any title problems discovered later. All right? Just know I have a lot of people without cameras. If this is your first time doing this, make sure the camera is pointing at you so you can have the credits counting towards your 75 hours. All right, next. Warranty forever. Warranty forever or warranty of title. Before anything else, a guarantee or promise forever, right? Isn't that crazy? Not even in marriages we do this anymore. We get ourselves down on one knee and say, hey, I promise I love you now. I don't know about later, but right now I love you. Will you marry me? Right? Even that has changed over the years. I know I'm exaggerating, okay? But the point is, warranty forever. I'm guaranteeing that if at any time in the future there's an issue with the title, again, come back to me. I'll take care of it. Right? You can even sue me. You can even sue me to get your money back if needed. Warranty forever. You will receive good title and I'll assist you in defending any claims to the contrary. So if anybody in the future tries to claim the property, I will be there with you by your side saying, no, this was my property. I had the right to sell and I sold it. Future. Now, what does future mean? Let's talk about this for a second. Spending a lot of money. Yeah, that's what it means. Let's talk about this for a second. Did you ever buy a semi-used car, like a 1 year, 2 year old car? Anybody ever bought one? Max 5 years. Okay, cool. You know, brand new cars come with a manufacturer's warranty, right? Now, they don't give a warranty forever, but my point is the same. If you bought a car that's 2 years old and still under the warranty, can you go back to the manufacturer if something is wrong with the car that fell in the original warranty? Can you? Absolutely. The warranty is the warranty. That's it. So the manufacturer says, if this car, not if this owner, if this car has any issues over the next 10 years, right? And these are the issues that we cover, right? Come back to us and we got you. Doesn't matter who the owner is. What matters is the car. In this case, warranty forever. We're warranting the title for as long as the title is being transferred. So, as an example, I sold the property to Brandon as a warranty. Brandon sold it to Denise. Denise sold it to Daniela. Daniela sells, and he keeps on going. And then it gets to Joel. Right? So Ed is trying to sell to Joel, like he got all the way to Ed. Ed is trying to sell to Joel. And here comes, let's say, here comes Shanice and says, oh, wait a minute. Ed, who are you and why are you trying to sell Joel? Shanice says, I'm the owner of the property. I'm the great-great-granddaughter of whoever, and here's the deed. I was the one that originally entitled to this by inheritance. I'm the owner of the property. And then what do you think is going to happen? Well, Ed cannot sell to Joel, but it's not Ed's fault. So Ed is going to have to sue everybody up to the chain of command all the way to me. So the previous owner to the previous owner to the previous owner to the one that gave the warranty forever. Okay? Quick reminder, not all deeds come with a warranty forever. Not all deeds do. Okay? So the one that comes with a warranty forever was the one I gave to Brandon. So everybody else after that has the right to come sue me, including Brandon. You guys understand? So if there's a warranty forever, anybody in the future can come after me. Next one is warrant of encumbrances. Guys, what is an encumbrance? You should know by now. What is an encumbrance? There you go. Joel answered cloud. Lula answers cloud. If anybody on YouTube wants to answer, join us on YouTube live chat. But cloud. So an encumbrance is a cloud, right? And a cloud is something that holds us back. So when we have a clouded title or a cloud on the title, that means there's things that affect the value of the property or limits the use of the property, right? So a warrant of encumbrances is me giving you a guarantee, Brandon, go back to me selling to you, is me giving you a guarantee that there are no encumbrances on the property that you do not know about, except those expressly named. So I told you this was a shared driveway. Look, it's a shared driveway. There's nothing I can do. I'm selling you the house with a shared driveway. That one I cannot get rid of. But you know what? There was a mortgage as well. I paid off the mortgage. So I'm now telling you there's no encumbrances except for the shared driveway. If something pops up in the future, again, come back to me. I will help you fix whatever encumbrances there might be. I'm telling you that there's no judgments that I did not pay for. Therefore, nothing against the property. Okay? And then we have warranty against Grantor's Act. And we're almost done with the warranties. Warranty or assurance against Grantor's Acts. So it states that the assurance of a trustee acting as a grantor on behalf of the owner that nothing has been done to impair the title during the fiduciary period. So a warranty against Grantor's Act pretty much says, while I had it from purchase to sale, this is what was done. Before me, have no idea. After me, I really don't care. While I had it. Okay? So during the fiduciary period, while they had it, nothing was done that would damage title to the property. Okay? Thumbs up. Great. Again, make sure cameras are facing you. There's some people I see from the forehead up. I don't see the face. Make sure. And if your camera is closed off, it does not count for your hours. Just letting you know. All right, bargain and sale deed. This type of deed, as we said before, this type of deed, not all deeds have warranties. That's what I said. So in this type of deed, the bargain and sale deed, it clearly explains. We bargained, we came to an agreement, and I'm selling it to you. Simple. Bargain and sale. We agreed to sell the property. Now, in a bargain and sale deed right here, says, I don't guarantee anything on the property, right? I don't guarantee anything. And that, in fact, it says I own the property, but I won't defend the property or the title to the property, right? So it is valid. I'm the owner, supposedly, right? But it may or may not warrant against or guarantee against encumbrances or promise to defend against any claims by other parties, okay? If there is a warranty of defense, then the deed is a full warranty and bargain and sale deed. Then we have the general warranty deed. This one is not used as much as in the past. This is me giving you all these crazy guarantees. I'm including all of them in one deed. I'm guaranteeing you the general warranty. I'm guaranteeing you that I'll do whatever it takes if there's any issues with the title. I'll do backflips. I'll figure out how to recreate these documents. I'll trace every step to make sure that you do have good title. It's a whole lot of promises. Not only am I promising the past, I'm also promising the future. So this one is not used as much as before because I cannot guarantee the future and I cannot guarantee the past. I'm just saying, right? So what we usually use is the special warranty deed, almost like a limited warranty, right? You've heard of these. It's not a full warranty, it's limited, right? The special warranty deed says, again, I will defend whatever happened while I had the property. Again, I guarantee while I had it, not the past, not the future. That's a special warranty deed, also known as a bargain and sale deed with covenants against Grantors Act. So again, I own the property and I will defend against my acts only. Okay? I know what I did. I don't know what previous people did. I don't know what future people will do. Simple as that. And the last one, quit claim deed. Now, with a quit claim, there's two words here. Quit claim. Okay? With a quit claim deed, what does it mean to quit? Quit means give up, right? Quit means give up. Okay? So I'm giving up any claims to this deed. I'm giving up claims to the deed or rights to the deed. Okay? So in a quit claim deed, I want you to think about this. It usually happens in marriages, family transfers, divorces, and so on. So let's say I am 100% owner, okay? 100% owner. And, all right, a few years later, after owning the property, 100% owner, a few years later, Bruno decides to get married. Okay? What do you think happens when people get married? When it comes to properties, what do you think happens? Cut it in half, that's what you're doing? Or you put it together, that's what you're saying. I don't know, I'm good with it. All right. Lula says share. Of course. Share everything, of course. Remind you guys, this is the same person when I killed the wife yesterday goes like, no, kill the husband. Same person. Anyway, Ed says 50-50, so let's go 50-50. So yes, when we get married, we love each other so much, we're going to join forces. That's what we're doing. Right? So, I now own 50% and I quit claim, or I gave up 50% to the wife. You guys good so far? I used to own 100%, but I gave up 50%. How do we do this transfer? It's called a quit claim deed. Okay? So we own it together. Yes, we own it together. There's two parties that own it. But I used to be 100% owner. Now I'm 50% owner. Because I gave up 50% of my assets to my wife. Okay? Now, yesterday we talked about something that's sad and a lot of times happens in marriages. Right? And that is called divorce. So a few years later, unfortunately, there's a divorce. Okay? At this point, the wife now has, as an example, oh, Lula, now you're laughing, huh? Now you're happy. Just because of that, let's change this. I gained. All right, back to the example. So, you're not happy, you're smiling. Pretty much, I quit the claim to the rest. Okay? So, a quit claim deed, as it says, is giving up the assets. Can I quit claim everything? Can I quit claim everything to my kids? Yeah, it's their marriage, and I say, okay, my son, because you're getting married, here's a house for you and your significant other, right? I'm quit claiming it to them. So this happens for between families. Ruth is laughing. Between families and divorces. This is the most common, quit claims. It could also be used when there's issues with the title and correct issues with the title. We're going to talk about that later. All right? So this was just an example. I'm not saying divorces, this is how they happen. It was just an illustration of what giving up was and what a quit claim deed was. And again, just so you guys know, even on YouTube, it's the women laughing at this. Same. Lula, I'm just messing with you. Nowadays, it happens every way possible. It could be the wife losing, it could be the husband losing, every way possible. All right. And by the way, you wrote that's a good guy. No, he lost. That's what it is. He lost in court. Lost in court. And that good guy, by the way, I don't know if you noticed, that good guy was me. Court. Sometimes you gain in a divorce. Yeah. Peace of mind. All right. There's pros and cons to everything. Everything is good, right? Nothing is all bad. But everything is good. You just got to look at the positive outcome. Something good to it. Simple. All right. Next. All right. Special purpose deeds. I've always been happy. Always happy. Have to. I wake up every morning with, this is going to be an amazing day. Doesn't matter how bad yesterday was. In the morning, it's a brand new day. Fresh new start. Right? So attitude to have always. Now, special purpose deed is one tailored to the requirements of specific parties, properties, and purposes. Principal types are personal representatives deeds used by an executor to convey the descendant's estate. So when somebody dies, there's an executor. There's the guardian's deed, when somebody is a court-appointed legal guardian to transfer the property of minors and mentally incompetent persons. There's the sheriff's deed. This is used when there's an auction at foreclosure, right? There's the deed of trust. That's for those states. There are non-judicial states. Instead of mortgages, they use a deed of trust, and we'll talk about this better when we get to chapter 17. There's the deed in trust, and at this point there's a trustor, there's a trustee, and a beneficiary. There's master deed. When you guys see master deed, we're talking about condominium developers as an example. When there's a community and there's a design for the community, everything is recorded with the master deed and distributed through the master deed. Okay, I'll explain that better also when we get to that point. There's a partition deed. You guys remember partition? I sue you to sell the assets or to physically separate if possible. If we can physically separate, there's a partition deed. This side is yours, this side is mine. Boom, that's it. We partition the property. Patent deed is when you're buying property from the government. And then tax deed when it's sold at a tax sale. Okay? Stacy says, I am. So, Stacy, I don't know if it was how long ago it was. I'm sorry, I did not see your message. But was this related to the quitting the claims? If so, everybody should be happy regardless. Now, transfer tax. Transfer tax. When you sell a property, state law says you have to pay a tax for selling. Right? The same thing that happens with cars. When you sell a car, there's a tax attached to the sale of the car. So state law usually requires a payment of a documentary stamp tax on a conveyance of real property. Now, the tax is based on the actual price of the property being conveyed, thus enabling taxing authorities to ascertain current market value for ad valorem tax purposes. The payment of tax is evidenced on the deed. Now, we have a section just for this, so don't worry too much about that right now. There are some exemptions of transfer tax, meaning you might not have to pay for that realty transfer fee or transfer tax if it's transfers within family, if the consideration or the exchange of value was less than a certain amount, the transfer was between the government, entities, or non-for-profit organizations, there was a trustee transfer, or reconveyance, or tax deed. So in any of these, there might not be any transfer tax. And again, a lot of these things go from state to state. So make sure you know what happens in your state. Next thing we have is will. Now, what is a will? A will or last will and testament is you saying, if I die tonight, who gets what, right? So a lot of people, before I move on to this subject, because this is, for me, is a very important subject, being that I also teach insurance and I teach, and I am in the practice of helping people prepare for retirement and stuff. I always talk about wills. A lot of people do not prepare wills because they think, oh, I'm going to live forever. I'm too young to be preparing this stuff. So you don't prepare a will, you don't get life insurance. And I don't know if you guys ever notice, but the life clock doesn't have a certain time, right? There's nothing in nature, right, that says, well, you will die in 2038, right? As a matter of fact, you're going to die on March 1st at 2:13 p.m. with 32 seconds, by the way, of 2038. There's nothing, right? There's nothing saying you're going to die tonight. There's nothing saying you're going to die 100 years from now. There's no time for that. And I'm sorry, by the way, if this is a touchy subject for anybody, but it's very, very important to understand. It is because of the losses that we've had that we should realize a will and life insurance is very, very important. Okay? A will and a life insurance is very important because we never know when it's going to happen. And who's going to suffer? You're gone. And when you're gone, you're gone. You don't, supposedly you don't suffer anymore. I don't know because I haven't been up to the other side, but I know what it is here. The people that I lost over the past 10 years, unfortunately, they're no longer here. So I don't know what they feel or don't feel, but I know what I feel, and I know what I had to deal with each one of them. I was the heir when my mom died, right? 9 years, almost 10 years ago. I was the heir when my grandfather died, and the heir when my uncle died last year. And in all three, I'm still dealing with paperwork. In all three, I'm still dealing with debts. The only one out of these three that was somewhat prepared, God bless her, was my mom. She had life insurance and all the paperwork organized. She even called me and says, hey, here's the thing. If something ever happens to me, and of course the first thing we do is like, nah, come on, drop that conversation. No, it's never gonna happen, right? Right? You're gonna live forever. You're so young. It's not gonna happen. Well, she called me to say this when she was 45. She died at 46. All right? So you never know. But anyway, everything was organized. She called me before she even knew she had cancer. She called me. Says, hey, I have life insurance. I just got one. If anything ever happens to me, just want you to know, life insurance, when you come to Portugal, life insurance is right there in the living room. I have a spot where all the documentation is in order. She described everything to me. When she died, I get to Portugal. Well, I got to Portugal and I got to see her for a few moments. Fortunately, she passed away the next day. And of course, from there on, it was just crazy. Never did I handle anything. I was always the one going to funerals, not handling the funerals, right? And never handle everything. So I had to learn the whole process right there and then. She did not have a will, but she had the insurance, right? And I can tell you that insurance was enough for me to make it last for another 4 years. So it wasn't much, but it was enough to pay for the funeral expenses and to last for another 4 years. I invested the money and it lasted for another 4 years to take care of my uncle, which was somebody with disability since he was born. So that's what I used the money for. Nothing for me, but for him. You understand? It's a lot of headaches. My grandfather dies and then I have to deal with a house, right? The house was not paid off. The house did not have insurance in case he died, right? So guess who inherited debt? I did, right? Now, the good thing, okay, that the property is worth a lot more money than what is owed. The bad thing is I wasn't expecting it. I had made some moves with monies, wasn't expecting it. You understand? And then here I am trying to move things around to make sure that I meet the commitment of that particular mortgage. All right, so the bottom line with this, before I get into what actually types of wills exist and so on, the bottom line with this is prepare yourselves. It doesn't mean you're going to die tonight, but prepare a will and get life insurance, at least not to leave to your money to whoever stays behind, but at least to cover your debts. Okay? Just to cover your debts. Because if you have a house and you have kids, you have a spouse, right? Or a significant other, when you die is one less person providing to the family. One less person providing to the family could lead to foreclosure, could lead to bankruptcy, could lead to stress and diseases, right? So, and I'm sorry bringing the subject from being happy, right? We just talked earlier about being happy and starting a brand new day. But I learned that from my mom, right? And from my grandfather. Even when they were really bad, they're always smiling and putting out jokes, right? But this is a serious thing. Make sure there's no I'm too young to get insurance or wills, right? But there is an I'm too old to afford it. So make sure as soon as possible, get one. Very important. All right? So, sorry for the life lesson. Again, it's my teaching side. I have to always give. That's just my way of being. So, a will, or more properly, a last will and testament, is a legal instrument for the voluntary transfer of real and personal property after somebody dies. By the way, I'm going to explain another reason why the will is so important. Now, it describes how the maker of the will, so the testator or divisor, wants the property to be distributed. So I'm telling you, let's say, who am I going to say? Okay, Daniela. So I'm saying, Daniela, you are the executor. So Daniela, you're the executor. I'm telling you, if I die, Daniela, please distribute my property this way. I'm telling how I want my property to be distributed. My money, my personal property, and real property. This is who you're going to give to and how, right? And any conditions that I might put. So a testator or divisor determines how it will be distributed. A beneficiary of a will is called an heir or devisee, and a property transferred by will is called a devise. Devise, okay? Now, property transferred by will is called a devise. I just wanted to write this because we're going to mention again later on. There's another word that a lot of people confuse with death, and that is demise. Okay? Demise. What is a demise? A demise is a transfer of property by lease. Sorry, I just read something. Lula says women are awesome. Absolutely. Cantina says funerals are so expensive. Oh yeah, especially here. Anyway, so a will is a devise. A lease is a demise. So what people associate demise with, like in the event of my demise, great poem. In the event of my demise means if I die, right? That's how people associate. But no, demise is we're here temporarily. Everybody knows that. Our body is temporary, right? So technically, we're renting space on this earth. If my rent is up, that's what we're saying. If my rent is up, demise. If my rent is up, I'm no longer here. I'm leaving. The rent ends. Then it's the demise, okay? If it's a will, last will and testament, called a devise. Very similar. One is with M, the other one is with a V. Now, a will takes effect only after the testator's death. It is an mandatory instrument, again, document, meaning that it can be changed at any time during the maker's lifetime. Now, the cool thing about a will is exactly this. It's a living, breathing document, meaning while you're alive, you can change the will as you go. You can add property, you can remove property. You can add beneficiaries, you can remove beneficiaries. It's not like you determine today what will be forever. No. In fact, while I'm alive, I can sell everything I have and say, you know what? I'm not leaving anything behind. I'm enjoying everything I worked for. You understand? So the will is simply to say, if anything happens now, this is who it goes to. But while I'm alive, I can still change it. I can amend it. I can alter it. Very important. Now, commonly, the testator names an executor. In my example, I said it was Daniela, right? An executor or personal representative to oversee the settlement of the estate. Lula, wouldn't that be lovely? What, to enjoy? Yeah, all right, absolutely. It would be lovely. Now, if a minor is involved, the testator may identify a guardian to handle legal affairs on behalf of the minor. So because all my children are minors, and yes, when I say all my children, there's 4, so they're minors, all of them, I would have to appoint, I would have to appoint a legal guardian. Most of the times, the mother, in this case, or if she's the one preparing the will, it would be the father. But if there is none, we need to have something called contingency beneficiaries and contingency executors. So if something happened to us, God forbid, something happens to us, the parents, right, at the same time, then I have to appoint a guardian that will handle the affairs for the minors, okay? A will generally takes one of the following forms. It has to be witnessed. That means it's in writing and witnessed by 2 people. It could be holographic. So it's not typed, it's handwritten. Handwritten, date and signed. Approved. Certain states require that a will must be prepared in a pre-printed form, approved by the state. Non-cupative means made orally and written down by a witness. It's generally not valid for the transfer of real property. state law establishes the requirements for a valid will. So the law generally requires, just like a contract or anything that's between two or more parties, and in this case is a testator, and it will be eventually for the devisees, so devisor and devisees, or the heirs, right? So I have to be of legal age and mentally competent when I'm preparing the will, okay? I must indicate that this is my last will and testament, even though it might change later on, okay? It has to be signed, and the completion of the will be witnessed and signed by the witnesses. And it has to be, again, voluntary, just like a contract, voluntary, without duress or coercion. I'm not being forced into preparing this will. Very, very important. All right. Now, we're still talking about wills. There's something called probate. What is probate? Probate is going to court. What if you make a will before you get married? Well, it doesn't change the will, but the wife might be entitled to 1/3 of the estate. So in the state of New Jersey, for instance, there's the elective share, where the surviving spouse is entitled to say, wait a minute, I'm entitled to at least 1/3 of the assets, right? So I can still leave everything to somebody else, right? Somebody else, but the spouse can come to court and say, I'm entitled to part of it. If the property is owned by both parties on the deeds, then that particular property is automatically assumed by the surviving spouse. That particular property. Everything else, heirs. That's why there's a lot of disputes. Yep. Okay. Now, again, probate, court. When somebody dies, the death of the person must be ran by court. What does that mean? We need to be able to determine who has legal claims against the assets. Because if I die tonight, there are bills that need to be paid. There's mortgages, right? There's the cars, right? There's credit cards. There's other things that need to be paid. So the court's job is to see, does anybody have any claim to the assets that were owned by Bruno? And then we pay off whatever needs to be paid off, whoever claimed it. Whoever did not claim, hey, sucks for you, right? And whatever's left goes to the heirs. So for instance, let's say I'm leaving $1 million as an example. But I have, so this is what my kids would inherit as an example. But I have $600,000 in debt. Okay? What do my kids really get? If all the creditors show up and say, hey, I have a piece of those 600,000, right? If all the creditors show up, then yeah, the inheritance is really just $400,000. So that's what probate court does, and that's why I'm telling you insurance. That's why I'm telling you, insure. If you have $600,000 in debt, at least insure the debt. So this way your heirs will get the full inheritance versus a part of it. Okay? Everybody does. I was just talking to my business partner not too long ago, because we both do insurance, right? And I was talking to him not too long ago, about a week or so ago, that I need more insurance. So we ran some quotes, and I'm getting more insurance. You don't need insurance, you need more insurance, right? That's how the rich become wealthy. There's a difference between being rich and being wealthy, right? That's how the rich become wealthy. Insurance, insurance, insurance. That's it. And then they borrow against the insurer, so they're borrowing against their own money. They become the bank. Learn that stuff. It's good stuff. You can use insurance to become wealthy. It's one of the avenues. Together with real estate, forget it. Anyway, a court proceeding, like I said, called probate, generally settles the decedent's estate. Whether the person has died testate, if you died testate, then you left a valid will. Okay, there's a valid will, you prepared one. Or you died intestate. That means you failed to prepare. Okay, you failed to prepare to do so, failed to prepare a will. So no will. Testate, will, intestate, no will. Okay? So it does not matter if you have a will or not, you still have to go through probate court. That's what we're saying. Now, real property may be exempted. Real property may be exempted from probate if it is held in a land trust. Now, because we're not talking about land trusts in detail in this course, I'm not going to dive too deep into it. But I did mention that certain states like Wyoming are big in this. If you have a land in trust, then technically I do not own the property. The trust does, right? There's a trustee and there's a beneficiary. The beneficiary is the heirs, for instance. So if I do not own, just like a corporation, right? If I do not own the real estate, why would it go through probate? The difference is that in a corporation, LLC or so on, I own shares, so the shares might have to be presented in probate. The shares to the company, not the real estate. All right? So these are some protections that might exist for probate things. Now, the probate court's objectives are to validate the will, if one exists, identify and settle all the claims and outstanding debts, as I was saying, against the estate, and then distribute the remainder of the estate. Okay. And then distribute the remainder of the estate to the rightful heirs. If the will does not name the executor, the court will appoint an administrator. So if there's no executor, then the court appoints an administrator. All right, so something to remember. If there's a will, usually there's an executor named in the will. If there's an administrator, it's because the court said, hey, you represent them, period. Okay? Administrators, court appointed, executors named in the will. Remember that. So distribution by probate, and then we're going to go into a break. Distribution by probate. If we die testate, means we have a will, right? And we have heirs, testate with heirs. First claim is to creditors. Okay? So who gets first dibs in probate? Creditors. Whatever's left goes to a legal life estate. So husband and wife. Third step goes to the heirs by will. Okay, so just like I said, when Lula asked, well, what if we got married? Well, then whatever is automatically to the surviving spouse is called a legal life estate, right? Whatever's left goes to heirs. So first step is always creditors, then the legal life estate, husband and wife, or spouse and spouse, and then heirs by will. If you die intestate, means no will, right? And you have heirs, no will, and you have heirs. First claim is to the creditors. Again, same thing. First claim is to creditors. The second claim is to legal life estates. And the third claim is to heirs by descent. Okay? So every state every state has something called laws of descent and distribution. So if you don't have a will, then the state where you live or where the property is located determines who gets what. Okay? So there's laws of descent and distribution. If you don't have a will, the state determines, which is a big problem, right? It's a big problem because if the heirs do not know, look right here, if the heirs do not know and do not claim, it is considered that you do not have heirs. If you do not have heirs, creditors can claim, and the state keeps by its cheat. They cheat you out of your property. Just like that. You have to claim. That's right, Ruth. Perfect. It's cheat. You have to claim the property. So there's testate proceeding. That means you have a will and you determine who gets what. There's an intestate proceeding with heirs. That means people show up and say, oh, wait a minute. I'm the rightful heir of person such and such. And the court will appoint an administrator to handle the estate proceedings. Okay? Or, again, there's no claims. And the state keeps everything. Okay? So again, the importance of a will is for you to determine who gets what. Otherwise, your state could get it all if nobody claims. Okay? Remember, your state is not going to come out and say, hey, did anybody know this person? If so, are you a rightful heir? If so, please come and claim. We're going to be at this location. Go there at 6 p.m. and claim. The state of New Jersey will not do it. The state of New York will not do it. No state will get out of their filing cabinets to look for you. Okay? It's a filing cabinet. So you are the one that needs to step up and say, I'm the rightful heir, and I'm here putting my claim as an heir to the assets. You guys good with that? Thumbs up. You understood? Great. All right, so Ruth, here's the thing. Every state has their own laws. State of New Jersey, for instance, is 1 year. You'll hold on to the property for 1 year, sell it at a public auction, and if nobody claims after that, they keep the money. So they're selling at a public auction, they hold on to the money for 1 year, and that's it. They'll announce in 4 different places in the state of New Jersey. They'll announce in 4 different places, being municipal locations, like City Hall, for instance, and local newspapers. Because nobody goes to City Hall and nobody reads newspapers, there might be no claims. All right? And until today, these notices don't go on Facebook. These notices don't go on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, or any of those. So most people will not know that they might have had some assets that they could inherit. So how long is it going to take? Depends on your state. All right, guys? We're good? All right. So we're going to go into a quick break, a quick 10-minute break, and then we're going to come back to talk about involuntary title transfer. For those of you watching on YouTube, I will close this session and open another one right after. Make sure you are subscribed so you get the notification as soon as we get back. All right, guys? We will be back 7:40.